Hello, welcome to another video by Help You Excel. Today is going to be a revisiting of a previous video that I did entitled Gas Pipe Diameter Calculator. And I will link to that video in the description. In that previous video, I showed how to get the solution by rearranging the data, thus making the formulas a whole lot easier. And I said in that video that it was possible to do it with the way the data was arranged to begin with. And so in this video, I'm going to show how I got that solution. There are a lot of ways that you could do it. This is the solution that I came to. And so I want to record a follow-up video so you could see the compare and contrast on how much simpler it was with the data rearranged versus the data in the previous format. So let's jump in. All right, so if you watched the previous video, this looks familiar. If not, I'm just going to give you a real quick rundown. What he wants to be able to do is down here, enter in some fixtures that he's installing on a gas line, and then have it calculate what pipe diameter is needed based on tables in the code book. Okay, so he would go down here and he would enter in a fixture. How far away is it from the gas meter? Up here it sums, gets your total BTUs, then it gets your longest length from the meter, and it spits out and it tells you your pipe diameter that's needed. In the first video, I rearranged the data in this way, made the formula a whole lot easier. There's this formula, and then an index match, and that's it. Pretty straightforward. In this version, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the tables as he had them defined. So depending on up here which one you choose, you can choose table 1 or table 2. If you choose table 1, then it's going to look up your value in this table here. If you choose table 2, it's going to look up your value in this table here. So this is how I did this to envision things. Okay, so right now this is uncoupled from the calculator. I just put it here as a helper, made it a lot easier for me to visualize. So this right here, if you're not familiar with Indirect will return a range based on, you can either type in like A1, A2, whatever kind of range you want, or in this case I'm using a named range. So I'm saying indirect A3. And so all of this is displaying the range that I defined in a named range called P table 1. So if I go F5 and I go P table 1, there's my named range for P table 1. Okay, so this indirect formula, and this right now, this table was just to help me visualize what I was doing without having to flip back and forth. I'm not actually using this table for my calculations at all. I just used it to help me visualize what was going on. These two I do use in my formula. So all I did, when this is coupled, it'll be like that, and then this will get its value from the first sheet. But for right now, I have this uncoupled, so I can just make my selection here without having to flip back and forth between my sheets. Okay, and then this one just takes P table 1, tacks on C1 at the end. This one tacks on R1 at the end. These two are also named ranges. So if I copy this and go to F5, P table 1, C1 is just the first column in this first table. And if I go P table 1, R1, it's just the first row in this table. And if I go P table 2, C1, it's the first column in the second table, so on and so forth. Okay, so the first thing I'm doing is I'm just building some named ranges based on what the user has selected. For visualization purposes, it loads in the correct table over here. Okay. Again, I've uncoupled these once everything's done. I would couple these like this, but I just wanted to be able to type in some values so I could check my formulas without having to flip back and forth. So right now this is uncoupled. Okay, so what we're doing, this is where it's gonna get gnarly. So we're gonna do a match. We're gonna look for the value in B7, which is 9. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna look for an exact match. So if I were to do 10, for example, it's taking B7, it's doing a match, and we're using our indirect formula. So we're using P table column 1, so that's represented here. This is column 1. It's doing an exact match, and it actually starts here. So it finds an exact match in row 2. Okay, row 1, row 2. 10 is an exact match in row 2. Okay, if this were 20, it'll find an exact match in row 3, 90, so on and so forth. But values could appear anywhere in between. So we could have a length of 5, for example. 5 is not an exact match to anything. So what this formula does, if there's not an exact match, this match formula will return an error. So I just say if error, then 0. So if there's not an exact match, this one will return a 0. This one will return an approximate match. So what it's going to tell me is it's going to tell me the first row where the number is less than this number here. So the first row where that number is less than is row 1. 0 is less than 5. Okay, so row 1 is the first one. But my values that I'm searching for BTU are not in row 1, they're in row 2. So I have to do an adjustment, and that's what this is here. So what this is saying if B11 doesn't equal 0, so in other words, if this is anything but 0, use the value in B11. If it's an exact match, I want to use that value. So if I go back to 10, okay, this is not 0. So B11 is not 0, so this value just comes from B11 right now. Okay, but if I make this 5, there is not an exact match, so it gets its value from B12 plus 1. And what this is telling me then is the correct row for me to look in is in row 2. So starting here, row 1, row 2. Okay. Now the next thing I did, and again, I could write this in one cell. I could have written -1 here at the end instead of doing a separate cell. But again, this was just to help me visualize the problem. When I write my formula, I'm going to do an offset. I'm going to start here, and I want to know how many rows do I need to offset from that row, and I only need to go down 1 row instead of 2. So my row offset is always going to be 1 less than this. Okay, and then I put some conditional formatting in here. Again, this was just for visualization to make my life a little easier. I said if D3, which is, oh, it's hidden. Let me unhide that so we can see it. I hid it so it wouldn't confuse us, but I need to see it. Manage rules. So it's saying if D3 equals T42. Why is it? Oh, there it is. If B13, which is here, equals E3. Okay. So B13 is my rows adjusted. So if the row number for B13 equals this row number, And I just numbered the rows. So this is row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. Again, for visualization, to make it easier for me. So if this row number equals this, then highlight green. Okay, so that's how the green is highlighting the correct row. So if I change this to 15, now it jumps down and it knows that this is the correct row. So I know that this row number adjusted, it's going to the right place. Okay, and that was just for me troubleshooting. If I make this 85, there it goes. It took it a second. I'm just going to jump down here and it's going to tell me this row. Okay, so I got my row. Now I got to figure out, okay, I know that I need to look in this set of numbers, but how do I figure out which column? Well, I basically repeat the same process, and all of this business is telling it to look in the correct row. Okay, so I'm saying, okay, look at value B8, that's my BTUs. Look in the row that we've identified, that's what all that does. And try to find an exact match. Okay, in this case, there is not an exact match, so it returns 0. If there was an exact match, like 52 BTUs is one of the values in here, it'll tell me that then I need to look in column 1, and that's where ½ inch would be found. Okay, but do another one, 110. 110 is an exact match in column 2, and my column numbers here start here, so this is column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. But then I had to account for approximate matches. So again, this is the raw approximate match. It's going to find the first column where the value in the column is less than my search value. Okay. Or the closest match where it's less than, I should say. 110, less than 115. So it returns column 2. But I actually want column 3, so I add 1 to it and I get my column. And then from there, it's a fairly simple index. I'm going to look at P table R1, and that again is this row here. Look in that range. I want the first row, so that's what the 1 here is, and then B17 is my column. So then that tells me which column. Okay, so a whole lot more brain damage to get to the same result, but it does work. Let's say, I don't know, 500. Okay, so that should be right here at 2 inch, and it's 2 inch. And then I can couple this, like I was saying, I can couple this to the other sheet. Pretty straightforward. So you go like this, couple that, and then I need to couple my feet to here. And then I need to couple this to my BTUs over here. And then I think I've already got this. Couple this here so I get my result. And those are right. Okay. So now let's check this. So using table 2, if my total length is 175, so I'll go down to table 2, that's this one. 175 is an exact match. We should be looking at this row. Total BTUs 229. So it should be this column. 1 inch should be my answer. 1 inch is my answer. What did we do wrong here? Length 175 table, so it should be this row. Did I read it wrong? BTUs 229. 229. We're getting a wrong result. Why are we getting a wrong result? Oh, because this is not coupled all the way. Equals P table and this. That's why. There we go. Okay, I didn't have things tied in together. I had a heart attack there for a minute that my formula was not working right. All right, so now if we change these, like make this 50 feet. So now that changes. My total length is now 150. So let's take a look. Table 2, 150. It's going to be this row. That's the closest match. 229 on the BTU. So we go across. It should be right here. Should be 1 inch. And that's what we got. Okay, so if you want to stick with this format, like I said in video 1, it is possible. As you can see, it's quite a lot more difficult. I also rewrote using my original solution, using the dget function instead of what I did before. These database functions, they all start with D. So dsum, dget, dmin, dmax, daverage. Okay, but they use a database, and it's a little different. So the first thing is a range that represents a range of cells formatted as a table. Okay, so I have a named range called table data. So if I F5 inside table data, this goes back to my table data in my first solution, and it's the whole table, including the column headers. You have to have the column headers included for these database functions to work. Okay, so we got table name, and then I tell it I want field name pipe DIA, or pipe diameter. So in this table, one of my field names is pipe DIA. So say I want the value that's in that column, and then this is my, if you know SQL, this is my where clause or my criteria. So you refer to another range in here for your criteria, and what I say is where table number equals 2. Okay, and this 2 gets its value from here. Where table number equals 2, where the minimum feet is less than or equal to this value, where the maximum feet is greater than or equal to, greater than this value, min BTU less than or equal to this value, max is greater than this. So all I had to do then for my criteria, I got that all laid out. Highlight this, and boom, it spits out the same answer. So three solutions, and there's probably 12 more solutions that would get you to the same place. I just really wanted to show you the contrast of how much easier it is when you lay out your data in tabular format like this versus the brain damage we had to go through to get the same answer if the data is laid out in this format. Okay, and if I wanted to do the brain damage, I could stick all this into a one-line formula, one cell formula. It wouldn't be one line, it'd probably be 4 or 5 lines long. I personally prefer breaking them out like this. It's easier to, even if I were to do it, I would do it this way first, and then I would go through the brain damage of sticking all this together into one formula. I don't think anybody is smart enough to type a formula just left, right, typing this all out without breaking it out first. You see videos of these guys that have these big old gnarly 4-line formulas. I guarantee you they did something like this first and then they combined them together. I don't see the point in combining these together, frankly. It's just more brain damage. It's doing what I need it to do. Also, troubleshooting a formula where that's all mashed together, where all of this is mashed together into one formula, troubleshooting that formula is going to be an absolute nightmare. So I just would rather leave it like this. You can hide this sheet so your users don't even have to see it. But yeah, I would just leave it the way it is. All right. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can always reach me at my email address, paul@huxl.com. You can find me on my website, huxl.com. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like. And if you want to see more like this, subscribe to my channel. Thank you.